She called my dead wife a witch, on the day we gave her everything. So the next morning, I took it all back and gave it to someone who actually deserved it. I never thought I'd hear anyone speak of my wife that way, least of all, on our son's wedding day. Layla was never a soft woman. Not in the fragile way some people mistake as kindness. Her kindness was heavier, built in long nights and quiet endurance. She held our house together with a spine made of iron and a heart that beat for nothing but family. People who knew her respected her. People who didn't usually learn quickly. But Layla passed before she could meet the one person she would have known instantly, the woman who would become our daughter-in-law. She died 5 years ago, peacefully, after a battle she never complained about. Our son, Cameron, was in college then. He came home for the funeral, stood silently beside me, then left without unpacking. It hurt, but I said nothing. Everyone grieves in their own way. I thought maybe time would bring him back to himself. Instead, it brought someone else. The first time he introduced me to Zara, she smiled wide, complimented the house, even offered to help clean the dishes after dinner. It was surface-level politeness, practiced and polished. But when I watched her glance at the photos on the wall, especially the one of Layla sitting in her garden, I saw the subtle grimace. I noticed how quickly she turned her head away. I didn't say anything. For Cameron's sake. Zara didn't like the curtains. So heavy, so dusty. She said it with a half-laugh, like it wasn't an insult. She mentioned how old-school the kitchen layout was, wondered aloud why we still had a formal dining room, and scoffed when I offered tea in Layla's favorite porcelain set. Small things, but they piled. Like needles under skin. I never pushed back. It wasn't worth starting a fire. Cameron had changed too. He once helped his mother trim the hedges, paint the walls, even collect wildflowers for the dining table. Now, he barely looked up from his phone when he visited. He referred to the house as the property, and when I talked about memories here, he nodded absently like someone humoring an old man. Still, I kept my silence. This home wasn't just walls and a roof, it was her. It echoed her voice in every hallway. And I wasn't ready to let go. When Cameron told me they were getting married, I smiled. Pretended to be happy. Deep down, I hoped it would bring him back. That maybe starting a family of his own would remind him of the one he came from. I asked what they wanted, as a gift. Zara said they didn't need appliances or furniture. Something long-term, she said. Something meaningful. It took me 2 weeks to make the decision. I sat in the garden every morning with my coffee, watching the way the morning sun touched the stone path Layla had arranged herself. She'd once said, "Promise me you'll keep this place alive, even if I'm not here to see it." I had. But maybe it was time to pass it on. I convinced myself that if I gave them the house, it would honor her. I didn't formally transfer anything. I only gave them the keys, told them it was theirs when they were ready. The wedding was big. Zara had spared no expense, or humility. Everything was Instagram ready, from the chandeliers to the imported flower wall. Cameron looked happy, though different. More like a man performing joy than feeling it. People congratulated me, clapped my back, told me I must be proud. I smiled and nodded. Then came the reception. She leaned in as they walked past my table. No one else heard it. She wasn't drunk, just careless. I've hated that old witch since the day I met her. That was it. A whisper. Soft, smug, and venom-laced. She didn't even look at me after she said it, just kept walking, laughing, hand in hand with my son. I didn't react. Not outwardly. Not then. But something inside me shifted. Not like an explosion. More like a door quietly closing. I sat there through the rest of the evening, watched the toasts, nodded through conversations I didn't hear. My eyes kept drifting to Layla's photograph by the guest book. A picture Cameron didn't want displayed, but I insisted on. It was the last one I took of her before she got sick. She was laughing. Sunlight in her eyes. Alive. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with a notebook in my hand, staring at the empty fireplace. The house was too quiet. Even the creaks in the floorboards felt distant. I imagined what Layla would say. Not loudly. She never yelled. but I could hear her in the silence. I could feel her disappointment at how far things had drifted. I looked around at the walls she painted, the table she polished, the curtains she chose, the chair she used to sit in after long days, tired but proud. And I realized something. The house wasn't mine to give. Not really. Not in the way I had done it. Because it wasn't just a house. It was her legacy. And I had handed it over to someone who not only didn't value it, but openly spat on her name. That whisper, that old witch, was a nail in the coffin I hadn't built. It sealed what I already knew. The next morning, I woke up and knew exactly what I had to do. The morning light cut across the hallway just as it used to when Layla would wake before me, slipping past the bedroom door with soft steps so I could sleep a little longer. That memory stayed with me as I moved through the house, each corner soaked in her presence. The wedding was done. The newlyweds were off to some beach resort. And I was here alone, surrounded by everything she built and everything they mocked. I didn't touch their room. I walked instead to the old study. I hadn't entered in months. Dust had gathered in fine layers across the bookshelves. On the far wall, her desk stood untouched. I hesitated before opening the drawer. It creaked just like it used to when she'd pull it open to grab a pen, write grocery lists, or tuck in handwritten notes for Cameron's lunchbox. Inside, beneath a few folded receipts and faded envelopes, was a thick letter sealed with red wax. Her handwriting was unmistakable. Layla's signature loops, careful and firm. The front read, "Open only if they ever forget who I was." I stood frozen for a moment, letter in hand. I sat down and broke the seal. Her voice came alive in ink. She wrote about her fear that time would erode her place in this family, that she'd be reduced to memories people would choose to ignore or reshape. She spoke of the house, of how much of herself she had poured into every brick. And then she wrote something that made my chest tighten. If someone ever disrespects my memory under this roof, don't protect them. Don't shrink yourself to keep peace. This house is my story. If they rewrite it with contempt, erase them instead. Do what needs to be done. She'd always seen things before I did. That line, the clarity of it, cut through my hesitation. I folded the letter and set it beside me. I didn't cry. I'd done enough of that. Instead, I stared at the walls around me. They weren't just paint and wood. They were her Sunday morning hums. Her quiet laughter as she trimmed the roses. Her back turned as she stood over the stove making chai. This was the house she lived in, fought in, forgave in. And I had almost let someone who called her a witch erase all of that with one smug sentence. I opened the cabinet under the desk and pulled out an old brown folder. Inside were the property documents. My name alone sat at the top. I had never formally transferred anything. No legal title change. No deed. Just an informal promise. Because in my heart, I still wasn't ready to let it go. Now I knew why. That evening, I sat in the garden she once planted. The marigolds had overgrown a little, but I didn't pull them out. She liked them wild. I remembered how she once said, "Give Cameron the house if you feel he'll honor it. But don't do it out of obligation. Do it because he understands what it means." I had ignored the second part. I'd wanted so badly for the gesture to fix the distance between us that I'd handed over something sacred without looking at the hands reaching for it. The truth was, Cameron had changed long before Zara ever entered the picture. She didn't turn him into this. She just matched the person he was becoming. Ambitious. Cold. Hungry for symbols of success more than substance. He didn't want the house because of what it meant. He wanted it because it made him look established. In the days after the wedding, I kept to myself. No calls. No texts. I didn't tell anyone what Zara had whispered. That wasn't the point. I wasn't interested in public drama. I wasn't trying to shame them. I was trying to honor Layla. I read her letter again on the third day. There was one final paragraph, nearly faded. If there's any value left in this house, use it for something worthy. Not for pride. Not for inheritance. But for something that uplifts another woman like me, someone overlooked, underestimated, or silenced. Make it a shelter. Make it safe. Just don't let my name disappear into nothing. That was her final wish. I opened my laptop and began searching. Local women's programs, transitional housing services, nonprofits. I found one not too far, struggling for space, relying on donations, trying to grow, but stuck on a wait list for funding. I emailed them, explained briefly, said I might have a solution. The director responded that evening. Her name was Nyla. She said she didn't want to get her hopes up, but that she would come see the property. I didn't tell her the backstory. Not yet. I just told her the house had a story, and it needed a better ending. The next morning, I stood at the doorway as she arrived. She walked slowly, absorbing everything. The creaky steps, the tall windows, the soft edges. When she reached the living room, she stopped. "There's warmth here," she said. "Not just heat. Warmth." That was all I needed to hear. She asked if I was sure. I nodded. I told her I'd cover any renovation expenses myself. I had savings. Retirement didn't scare me. Failing my wife's final request did. Before she left, she said something that caught me off guard. "This house already feels like it belonged to someone who knew how to hold others up." She was right, and I was going to make sure it stayed that way. Later that evening, I opened my safe, pulled out the official documents, and made the call to my lawyer. The house would be sold. Proceeds donated directly to the shelter in Layla's name. The transition would be swift and clean. Nothing the newlyweds could contest. I didn't tell Cameron right away. There was no rush. Let him enjoy the last few days of his honeymoon, oblivious. I had no anger toward him, just disappointment. But even that was fading. I was past expecting anything from him. My responsibility now was to Layla. That night, I lit a candle in her corner of the house. A habit I'd dropped over the years. I sat across from it and whispered, "I waited too long, but I'm doing it now." The flame flickered gently, as if it heard me. The next chapter of this house had already begun. They returned early from their honeymoon unannounced. I heard the front door open with the same confidence people have when they believe something is theirs. Zara walked in first, sunglasses still on, dragging a designer suitcase across the floor like it was a runway. Cameron followed, already on his phone. Neither of them greeted me. She glanced around. "We should gut the kitchen first. Maybe open up the space." I didn't respond. She continued walking, already pointing at walls like they were in her way. Cameron finally looked up. "Did you get the AC fixed? Place smells old." Still, I said nothing. I simply stood by the window, sipping tea from the same cup Layla used to prefer. My silence irritated Zara. She scoffed, turned to Cameron and said, "Maybe we should just hire a team and let them deal with it while we stay downtown." I waited for the moment. It didn't take long. "When will we get the deed transferred, by the way?" Cameron asked casually. "Might as well get our names on paper." I finally set the cup down. "You won't." He blinked. "What?" "The deed. It stays with me. The house was never transferred. It never left my name." There was a long pause. Zara turned sharply. "Excuse me?" I remained calm. "I never filed the paperwork. Never changed the title. You were given access, not ownership." Her voice sharpened. "But you said it was our wedding gift." "I changed my mind." Cameron stepped forward. "Why?" "What's going on?" I handed him a folded sheet of paper. It wasn't the full letter, just a typed excerpt from it. He scanned it, face tightening. "What is this?" "Your mother's words. Her final wish." Zara rolled her eyes. "So now we're doing ghost wills and emotional blackmail?" I ignored her. She asked me to protect this house. If anyone ever disrespected her memory, she asked me to take it back. Zara scoffed. "Because I made a joke?" "No," I said. "Because you called her a witch. And meant it." Cameron looked away. He remembered. He'd heard it. Maybe not clearly, maybe not the words exactly, but he'd seen her expression when she said it. And he didn't stop her. "This is ridiculous," Zara snapped. "You gave us this house. You can't just take it back because of a feeling." "It's not a feeling," I said. "It's a decision. One your actions made very easy." Cameron finally spoke. "Are you really doing this?" Over one comment. No, I said. Over years of watching who you became. That comment was just the confirmation. He went silent. I turned to Zara. You don't have to understand, but you will respect it. This house is no longer available to you. She laughed. You think you can just sell it out from under us? This is a family matter. It'll come back to you legally. I raised an eyebrow. Did you sign a single document? Do you have a title? A contract? She opened her mouth, closed it again. There is no legal trail, I said. Only a courtesy you mistook for permanence. Cameron stood still, hands and fists at his sides. Where's it going then? To someone who needs it. He looked confused. I've already spoken to a local women's shelter, I said. They've agreed to purchase it. I'm donating every rupee to expand their services. Zara's voice cracked. So, this is a revenge stunt. This is my wife's house, I said, and I'm giving it to a cause she would have stood behind. Cameron lowered his head. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. That silence told me what I needed to know. Zara walked past me, stormed into the guest room, slammed the door behind her. Cameron remained frozen in place, staring at the floor, like a man trying to calculate the cost of something he thought was free. Later that day, the agent confirmed everything was set. The shelter director, Nyla, had wired the down payment. The final signature was scheduled for the weekend. I boxed up what little Cameron had left behind: old trophies, books, a suit he never came back for after Layla's funeral. I didn't touch Zara's things. They weren't mine to move. I simply left a note. Kindly remove your belongings by Friday evening. After that, access will be restricted. I left it in the hallway. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the lights flicker through the window. For the first time in months, the house felt still in a way that didn't ache. It felt steady. Cameron knocked once on the door. I let him in. He didn't yell, didn't argue. He just said, "You chose her over us." I looked him in the eyes. I chose the woman who built this family. You chose someone who destroyed its memory. He sat down across from me. I never meant for things to go this way. I know, I said, but meaning doesn't matter when the result is damage. He nodded once. No anger, just quiet understanding. I wish Mom could see what you're doing. She already did, I said. That's why she left the letter. He didn't say another word, just stood, gave me a small nod, and left. I didn't know if he'd come back. I didn't expect him to. But the house had already started its transition. It was no longer theirs. Truthfully, it never had been. Friday arrived quietly. They didn't speak to me that morning. Zara stayed in their room. Cameron walked out once, grabbed a bottle of water, and went back without eye contact. I didn't chase either of them. There was nothing left to discuss. By noon, movers arrived. Professional, fast, and efficient. Zara gave clipped instructions, arms folded, face stiff with resentment. She didn't pack much, just the things she brought. Clothing, boxes of makeup, shoes that had never touched the ground outside, a vase she claimed was Italian, a framed photo of her and Cameron in matching robes at a resort, holding wine glasses and pretending to be happy. I stayed in the kitchen. Doors open, curtains drawn back. The garden looked peaceful. The marigolds still bloomed wide and defiant, untouched by the noise inside. By 5, the house was quiet again. Cameron was the last to walk out. He paused at the door. I could tell he wanted to say something, but nothing came. Instead, he gave a single nod, something between apology and goodbye, and left. I locked the door behind them. It clicked shut like the end of a sentence. Saturday morning, Nyla arrived with the paperwork and a smile that felt genuine. She held a bouquet of white lilies and said, "For her." I didn't ask how she knew. She placed them gently on the mantel, beside the only photo I hadn't packed away. We signed the final documents in the living room. It was quick, clean. I handed over the keys with both hands. She accepted them with both of hers. Outside, a small team waited. Volunteers. All women. Some survivors. Some staff. They didn't cheer. They didn't pose for photos. They walked into the home with reverence, pausing to look around like they could feel its history in the air. I didn't stay long. Before I left, I stood in the hallway, placed my hand on the wall, and whispered, "She'd be proud of you." No answer came. Just the quiet hum of life beginning again. I returned 2 weeks later at Nyla's invitation. They had painted. Soft yellows. Light blues.
Clean.
The furniture had changed, but not the feel. The warmth Layla built hadn't gone anywhere. It had just evolved. There were children's drawings on the fridge. A bulletin board with notes like, "You matter and your story isn't over." The kitchen smelled like cardamom and courage. One woman passed me in the hall and smiled. She didn't know who I was. She didn't need to. In the backyard, I saw something new. A wooden sign with carved letters, stained deep brown and bolted into the ground. The Layla Foundation Home for Women. I walked toward it slowly. Beneath the name, a simple line. In honor of the woman who built this house with love and left it with purpose. I felt no tears. Just something steady inside me. A kind of peace that replaced the years of quiet grief. Cameron didn't call. Zara never reached out. Months passed. Then one night, a letter arrived. No return address. No stamps. Just slid under my door. It was from him. The handwriting was familiar, but shakier than I remembered. He wrote that he'd moved out. That he wasn't sure who he was becoming, but he didn't like it. That he didn't know how to undo years of silence, but he wanted to try. I thought she was just a memory, he wrote. But I realize now she was the compass. And without her, I've been lost. He asked if we could meet. Just the two of us. No conditions. No arguments. I folded the letter, placed it beside the original one from Layla, and said, "Okay." There was no dramatic reconciliation. No long speeches. Just a quiet lunch a week later. He sat across from me, different. Not fixed, but real. He asked about the shelter. I told him everything. About the women. The programs. The impact. He listened. No interruptions. No defensiveness. When I showed him a photo of the carved sign, his hand trembled slightly as he held it. "She would have liked this," he said. I nodded. "She'd like that you're here now." That was enough. I never gave Cameron the house. But I gave him something more important, his foundation back. A reminder of who raised him, who shaped him, who still, even in absence, led him toward better. Zara didn't come back. I didn't expect her to. Some endings don't need closure. Just distance. The house thrived. Women came and went. Stories unfolded within its walls that I didn't need to know to believe. It became what Layla had dreamed it could be, a place that meant something. And as for me, I visit sometimes. Quietly. No ownership. No authority. Just as a witness. Because this house no longer belongs to me. It belongs to her legacy. And the women strong enough to carry it forward.